Today is Sunday, February 9th, 2020, and this is Flashpoint. Hi, welcome to Flashpoint, where I am happy to shake your hand and I won't tear up your speech. What a week in Washington, where the nation has managed to develop a second Grand Canyon, a wide fissure that seems destined to separate two massive groups of Americans for certainly the next 9 months and most likely beyond. Unlike Bill Clinton, who survived an impeachment a few decades ago, President Trump emerged unrepentant and spitting venom at those who took him to the brink of removal. And that's exactly how his supporters would have it. As I've said time and again on this program, everyone is watching the same thing, but not seeing anything the same way. And frankly, I don't have the stomach to listen to the two sides hash it out any further. So this morning, three other big issues facing Michigan. For starters, a few weeks ago, we talked with Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson about the measures she feels are necessary to ensure a smooth election day in our state. And then we watched an unmitigated electoral disaster in Iowa this week. Now, the app issues won't apply here, but the white-hot spotlight of expectation will certainly be on full blast. Jocelyn Benson is back this morning for a progress report with the Michigan primary now about a month away. We're also going to dig into Governor Whitmer's budget. It is massive, about $62 billion. That doesn't mean there's money for everything, and that includes local roads. The highs and lows of the layout are coming up. And we're going to be joined by Dr. Hassan Naimi. He's the thoracic surgeon at Henry Ford who performed the nation's first double lung transplant due to damage caused by vaping. It is a very full morning, and it's all today on Flashpoint. Last month, Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson was here to talk about worries over the state's new absentee voting policy and what it could mean for getting the Michigan vote counted in a timely fashion. And that seems a particularly acute worry after the Iowa debacle of this past week. Secretary Benson has spent a month lobbying lawmakers and county and city clerks to prepare, and she's back this morning as we are now just about a month away from Michigan's presidential primary. Secretary Benson, thanks very much for coming.
Always back. Good to be here.
First, before I get to what kind of progress you've made, your reaction to what happened in Iowa this week?
Well, it clearly shows why professionals need to be running elections. But when political parties get involved, messes occur. And I always say democracy is a team sport. We need everyone working together. But it does show that, when you have political parties in charge of the process, things can get a little hairy. Is that what was at heart of it? That's part of it. There's no, you've got a deeper expertise among election administrators who can prepare contingency plans and all the rest. But obviously, it was also new technology, this use of an app. It's why here in Michigan, we've been saying we're Michigan, not Iowa. We have paper ballots. We use best practices to secure the counting methods and all the rest. But new untested technology combined with new untested people running the caucuses, I think, led to a lot of the challenges you saw.
Anybody who wants an absentee ballot now can have one, thanks to the change in Michigan's policy. It didn't come with any changes in the way that, as you and I talked a couple of weeks ago, about the way that clerks have to deal with those when they come in. Have you gotten anywhere with your bid to tweak this a little bit so that it is easier to handle when they come in?
Yes, it's been very gratifying to see the legislature respond in multiple different ways. Some measures proposed have sort of gotten us half of the way there. Others are much more comprehensive and in tune with what the clerks are asking for. Representatives Hope, Representatives Love are working on some legislation that is in line with best practices across the country. Representative Guerra is also presenting legislation that's going to give clerks the time they're asking for to process ballots. So it's going to take all of us working together to come up with the best solutions and listening to our clerks on the front lines about what they need.
Will any of these changes be in place in time for the primary, or are you really having to think just about the general election in November?
My hope was that they would be in place for the primary. That's why we started this effort really over a year ago, calling for these changes. And it still could happen. It's unlikely because we also want to get it right, and there are a lot of people now.
But I cynically ask whether you think the Republican-led legislature is all that vested in making sure we have a good Democratic primary.
It's interesting. There's a lot of Republican clerks calling for these changes, or Republican elected clerks. Okay. So it truly is a bipartisan issue. It's just about making sure that the count goes smoothly, that we return the results efficiently and securely. So I'm always an optimist. I'm always hopeful we can work together across the aisle to get things done.
How much of a problem is it that there is such autonomy among the counties and cities, and the way that I watch this happen every year in our newsroom. We have votes that come in from some counties. They're clearly using one variety of software because we can see the percentage of the precincts that are reporting, which is so important when you see a vote total come in. Other counties just give you a vote total. You have no idea if that's 5% or 80% of the vote.
We have over 1,500 local jurisdictions, each running their own elections. Michigan is one of the few states where our election system is completely decentralized, whereas in other states there's more accountability at the state level. It's a partnership, really, in Michigan. That's how I try to think of it, where we set standards.
Does that feel like best practices to you to have it decentralized at a time like this?
There's some benefits to it because what works in Alpena may be different than what works in Detroit. And so there is some need, I think, for that local input, but there also needs to be some statewide standards, and that's where we come in, trying to set expectations and also increasing the amount of educational opportunities we're providing our clerks. And really, it was one of the things we're working to do more this year. But there are 3 vendors that clerks are able to choose from, and that creates some inconsistencies as they exercise their local authority to what machines are going to use and how they're going to report results.
There is always been a mystery as to how it ever got to be Iowa and New Hampshire that have such an outsized influence. There's a lot of people questioning that right now, led by Congresswoman Debbie Dingell. This was her pet project before she was in Congress, and she was a Democratic National Committee member. What are your thoughts on Iowa, not just that being the state that leads the way, but doing it in the caucus style that they do, which is a different animal? Yeah,
I think primaries are good. I think I always try to veer towards what's going to get the most people involved and ensure the results are the most accurate. And then also I like to always revisit and use data to determine what we think the direction is to go in. And look, it was really the championship of the New Hampshire Secretary of State, Bill Gardner, who's still in place. He was in place in the 70s. He led the advocacy for their first in the nation status as a primary. So I'm happy to advocate for Michigan to have a stronger voice in the process. I think the more diverse voices that are represented, the better. I think in Michigan we've got secure elections, we've got efficient elections, so we're up to the task to move up the calendar. It's ultimately a party decision.
Well, you're one of the state's leading Democrats, so
yeah. And I think Michigan is a great microcosm of the entire country, and so to have Michigan be one of the leading states and an influential voice at every aspect of the selection of a president, I think is an important thing for our state to be able to be a part of.
Lastly, with the change in technology, I always assumed for a long time that we would get to the point where I would cast my vote on my phone or on my computer.
That's what they thought in Iowa. Look how that
exactly. Now all of a sudden, I think a lot of people are thinking that there's a lot to be said for paper
ballots.
And pencil.
Absolutely, paper ballots are critical. I mean, look, we always want to find ways to use technology effectively and securely and make voting relevant for a lot of people who are used to doing everything on their phone. That's why we created online voter registration this year. It's been implemented, and now you can register to vote online. So we're taking steps to integrate technology into democracy, but to do so securely and effectively. But you've got to have those paper ballots, that paper trail, so that we can do effective recounts and protect the security of the process.
About a month to go until the Michigan primary, which the entire country, of course, will be watching. Michigan playing a central role, and then the big challenge, of course, will be coming
and we're
November. Ready. We will be talking more between now and then. Thanks very much for coming
Thanks
back.
For having
Secretary
me.
of State Jocelyn Benson. We come back, we'll talk about Governor Whitmer's budget, which was released this past week. This is Flashpoint on Local 4.
It's always more for less at Gorman's 3-day clearance center. That's more quality, more style, and up to 70% off best brands. Gorman's 3-day clearance center. Every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Learn more at gormans.com.
The effects of bullying can be long-lasting and traumatic. When children are bullied, it can be difficult for them to express their feelings or give an explanation as to why they're acting differently. It's important that parents know the signs associated with bullying, like hesitation about going to school, decreased appetite, or general depression and anxiety. If you or someone you love needs to be connected with a trauma-focused mental health professional, contact the Detroit Wayne Integrated Health Network 24/7, 800-241-4949. Here to talk, here to help.
1-800-HANSON's cure for escaping the winter cold. 50% off the installation of our famous storm-resistant roofing that safeguards against ice backup. That's 50% off plus no payments and no interest till spring 2021. Our roofing is so good, we guarantee it for life. Call 1-800-HANSON's now and keep your home winter ready. And save 50% off the installation.
Call 1-800-HANSONS. Get it done.
Save 50% off all Lexington furnishings at Gorman's. Pure style has never been more affordable. Gorman's is offering factory direct savings of 50% off the unequal styling of Lexington. This weekend only at Gorman's.
Local 4 is committed to defending the environment. Help Me Hank continues to dig deeper on the toxic ooze investigation and won't stop.
Somebody needs to be held responsible for the lack of work that was done.
Defender Karen Drew fights for justice, making sure the people behind the Detroit River contamination concerns clean up their act.
We know it's contaminated soil.
Another violation.
Meet the people affected by two big threats and see what's next in their investigations. Defending the Environment, a Local 4 special event. Tonight at 8, only on 4.
Big week for Governor Whitmer. She not only delivered the Democratic response to the President's State of the Union address from Lansing, she also delivered her budget for the new year. Now, it's just the governor's version. It still has to come together with a legislative version, but it tells us something about the starting point and about her priorities. Let's talk about it with Kathy Gray, the political reporter here for the Detroit Free Press, and Richard Burr, the assistant city editor for the Detroit News. Thanks, both of you, for being here. We, of course, have to start with roads. It was the centerpiece of her campaign. She didn't get anywhere with her gas tax, Kathy, and now she's come back. She wants to go with she's talking about this bond issue, but nothing in the budget about roads. Is that incongruent?
Kind of, but she says it's up to the legislature to come up with a long-term fix for it. And she's come up with the short-term fix to deal with immediate needs to fix roads and bridges with this bonding issue that's already passed the State Transportation Commission. And now she's saying it's up to you guys. Bring it on. A
little bit of an end around that she was able to do with the bond, but she's already hearing from a whole bunch of Republican lawmakers, especially those in rural areas, because the bond issue, Richard, can only be used for state highways and roads and not for local roads, which is a lot of the problem.
Yeah, well, I mean, her argument has always been that some of the state trunk lines are actually in more desperate need of repairs than some of the local roads. But she's still saying, I'm just trying to take care of some of the short-term stuff, some of the worst stuff now that I can do unilaterally. I'm going to continue to work on a longer range thing. But I mean, both sides are pretty intractable right now. It's going to take a while, but I will say this, in the budget there is $205 million extra for roads this year. About $132 million of that was required by a 2015 law. Right, so there's a minor kind of patch amount of money in there to do a little more, but still the big chunk is still waiting to be done.
Another headline grabber here, Kathy, was we are seeing a per-pupil spending boost that we have not seen in, I think at least her folks are saying it's the biggest increase we've seen in education spending in 20 years.
Well, and everybody likes to see a boost in education, but one of the things that she's...
But not everybody likes to see a boost in spending.
That's true.
Yeah.
But one of the things that she's doing that she's going to run into trouble with is proposing a weighted formula for it, which would provide districts that are in that have greater needs, at-risk kids, special education, things like that. And she tried the weighted formula last year. Governor Snyder tried the weighted formula before too, and the Republicans have kind of rejected that because, again, it kind of continues with this narrative that perhaps more money is going to urban districts rather than rural districts. But one thing that the budget director, Chris Gold, pulled out was a map that was all green and it showed where the most need was, and a lot of it was up in the UP and along the west side of the state. It's not just urban areas.
Richard, just speaking of Governor Snyder, during the campaign, she complained bitterly, Governor Whitmer did, about the pension tax. And yet here we are, her second budget, and no plans to repeal it, and a number of seniors are already howling that they feel betrayed.
Well, I think it's one of these things where after the big budget fight last year, with the Republicans, she was going to kind of go with her main priorities, and she may have read the tea leaves and decided that one of the Republican leaders wasn't up for doing a pension tax repeal. So I think it's still one of those issues that's going to hang out there, and she campaigned on trying to get it repealed. It may come up in a final deal. I mean, sometimes stuff that isn't in the February budget turns up in the June or July final document.
Yeah.
And she's also talked about a bill that's out there that would repeal part of the corporate tax that was passed during Snyder's first year in office in exchange for the pension tax, because otherwise it blows a pretty big hole in the budget.
Well, I should keep pointing out there's horse trading to be done here. This is just the starting point, as I mentioned earlier. There's also a fair amount of spending for the environment, and she said one of her three priorities in this is making sure everybody's got clean water to drink. We've watched all these environmental problems bubbling up all over the place, especially in southeast Michigan the last couple of weeks.
Well, she put in $20 million for a rapid response for the environmental issues, kind of like the green ooze that's coming out of 696 to deal with stuff like that. She also has put in $40 million for problems that have been caused by the high water levels along the Great Lakes, but also on inland lakes and with sewer treatment plants that are getting flooded and roads that are getting flooded and stuff. But $40 million is very little.
Doesn't seem to go very far anymore. One of the areas, Richard, where I think a lot of Michiganders felt like they can, because it's something that we see, we relate to, was the Pure Michigan campaign. It probably got outsized attention, but because it is one that people, it's very accessible to most of us. She's put some of the money back in.
Yeah, so she's, it was $37.5 million. She basically vetoed it in an attempt to try to get Republicans to come back to the table on road funding and other issues. She's now proposing $15 million, which is about 40% of what they used to have. Of course, the tourism industry is still kind of dismayed because they figure they're being left out in the wind, and it's not real clear how much the Speaker Chatfield and Mike Shirkey, the Senate leader, want to do on this. Shirkey kind of suggested last fall that, hey, maybe this is something, if it's something that benefits businesses, maybe they should be funding most of it or part of it.
We all expected a certain amount of felicity with legislative issues from Governor Whitmer, having been the former Senate Minority Leader. However, term limits means she doesn't really have relationships with many of the people now that she's in. So as we wrap up, give me sort of your status report on how the governor's doing with dealing with a very unruly and not necessarily friendly legislature.
Well, she's still meeting with them on a regular basis. She has the quadrant meetings with the 4 leaders of the House and the Senate, so those are still going on. I would say that there's a uneasy détente there that they're trying to do, but I don't. Well, we'll see how this budget shakes out.
Richard's not near as friendly as it was up on Mackinac Island when they first had that big group hug on the porch.
Right. Well, I think it's one of these things where you have major philosophical divides in the parties, and it's reflected in how things are done. And she's been combative in tone, and it hasn't helped that Mike Shirkey kind of made a really bad comment about her in response. And so I think they're still trying to get past that.
We'll see where it goes. Thanks for the primer, you two. We really appreciate it. When we come back, what's the truth about vaping? This is Flashpoint on Local 4.
Is your house cold and drafty? Are your energy bills through the roof? With Michigan's winter being so unpredictable, you cannot afford not to insulate your home another winter. Stop bleeding money. Insulate your walls and attic. Cut your energy bill up to 50% with Ace & Sons.
Be my Valentine. Diamond hearts just $39. Half-carat diamond hearts $149. 2-carat puffed hearts $5.99. Diamond bands $4.99 per carat. Then 1-carat studs $5.99. Thousands of Valentine's gifts guaranteed to appraise for double. The Jewelry Exchange, Livonia.
You're looking at United Shore, one of the fastest growing companies in Metro Detroit. From the moment you step foot on its campus, you understand why United Shore is a one-of-a-kind workplace. And that goes well beyond the 1.5 million square foot state-of-the-art campus and its many convenient perks. Home to the #1 wholesale mortgage lender in the nation, UWM, United Shore is a company where people can build a career. Just ask the more than 2,000 team members promoted over the last 2 years. You heard that right. They don't have employees. They have team members, nearly 5,000 to be exact. Everyone engages you and welcomes you into a culture that's more like family, built on thoughtfulness and friendship. The office layout is open, just like the doors of the company's leaders. Fundraisers and volunteering are commonplace. Meetings aren't allowed on Thursdays. And there's a long-standing commitment to a firm 40. That's a 40-hour work week and the promise of having time to have a life. Sound like a place that could work for you? Go to UnitedShore.com to learn more.
Let's
the best act. Where else are you going to see that?
The Got Talent Finals, Monday on NBC.
I have to save the passengers. I have to cure the death date. I have to test on myself.
Sally, wait!
Did we crash?
Welcome back. Perhaps you've seen our recent reports on Local 4 with my interview with Daniel Ament, the Grosse Pointe teenager who became an unfortunate pioneer. He became the first person in the United States to need a double lung transplant due to vaping. The man who performed that surgery is thoracic surgeon Dr. Hassan Naimi, and he's here this morning to talk about this case that was so different from anything he's seen before in his career of studying and assessing lung damage. Doc, thanks so much for coming. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
You were a part of the stories that we did, but I really wanted to expand on what you saw and what you've come to learn now about vaping. Let's start with Daniel's case, though, and we actually have a picture of the x-rays. And the picture there that you see on the left, where it says before, you said it was as if his lungs had vanished.
For the most part, because when you look at the x-ray on the right side, you see that there is some air spaces. That's what gives you the blackish appearance, which is the normal appearance of the lung. So the lung had vanished. It's not disappeared, but the normal lung had vanished.
The picture on the left, though, was you basically said you'd never seen anything like that before.
Not to this extent, no. I have never seen it this bad.
We received an awful lot of criticism for not coming out and saying, look, the reason this happened to Daniel was because he vaped illegal black market THC. We've done many stories on vitamin E acetate, which is an additive into THC vaping fluid. Yes. But you can't really say yet exactly what caused this, can you?
No, it can be 100%. I mean, there is potential that it's vitamin E acetate from THC. But we're not 100% sure about that. Seems like 80+% of the cases that were reported was involved with vitamin E acetate.
But one of the markers that you look for in looking for vitamin E acetate, you couldn't find in Daniel, apparently.
Well, people report, and again, exactly, this is the point. People report fatty deposits in the white cells and the macrophages, and or findings of fat material into the tissue. We did not find any of the above. That doesn't rule it out clearly.
Sure,
and at the same time, also, we don't have a holistic view on what the abnormal findings are in these cases, and we were starting to learn about it.
Because it's still, even I guess, vaping seems to have been around now for about a decade, but that's really new in the medical world.
It is. It is.
As somebody who is, you look at lungs every single day, I think a lot of people have come to believe that vaping is at least, and let's stay with nicotine for a minute. Vaping is at least healthier for you than smoking a cigarette. Does that seem clear to us yet?
It's not clear. I mean, I don't know if I can make a head-to-head comparison. We're talking apples and oranges. You know, the damage from vaping is not the same as from cigarette smoking. The addiction part with the nicotine is the same, if not more, with the vaping, because usually these cartridges have a very high concentration of nicotine in it. So if people are doing more a day, there's a possibility they might have a bigger nicotine dose.
In fact, the UK has much more stringent rules on the amount of nicotine that can be in a cartridge. It's kind of wide open in the United States, isn't it?
There are no regulations.
So we really don't know then what vaping can end up being, or do you find that it might be a pretty valuable tool to help people get away from cigarettes?
That's a beautiful statement, because it was marketed originally as a tool to get off cigarettes. And I personally am aware of a few people who used it as a tool successfully. But the statistics show that the majority of people who quit cigarettes by vaping are getting stuck on vaping.
The nicotine, the hunger for the nicotine remains.
Exactly, the addiction remains the same. So from what I saw in some of the reports, up to 80+% of the patients who quit cigarette smoking while vaping, they continue to vape afterwards. And that's a gateway. It opens the door for other things to happen.
We keep mentioning, and you're a thoracic surgeon at Henry Ford Hospital, which got all this attention by it being the first double lung transplant due to vaping. But do you see other people coming to you with damage from vaping?
Personally, I have not.
Okay, this is the first one.
I'm the end of the line.
Well, that's by the time somebody needs a transplant, it's gotten pretty severe, hasn't it? Yeah. Then talk a little bit about what you because Daniel's cause now, and I believe I know you support him in this, is trying to get young people away from vaping because he feels like so many of his friends are doing it, but so many of his friends are also hooked on it.
Yes, I mean I have the same feeling about the mission myself is protecting the young. Because number one, the creation of nicotine addiction is a terrible thing. And people don't talk about it as like we talk about drugs, but coming off nicotine is not any easier, if not harder than some of the drugs. So there's the addiction. It potentially can be a gateway to different type of substance abuse as they grow older. The third thing that really bothered me a lot is when I started delving into things a little bit and talking to different people, especially in that age group, the middle school age group and high school age group, many of these students are under the impression that it's benign, it's only water vapor. And it's not water vapor. This is not a benign intervention.
It remains a toxin.
It does,
nicotine,
absolutely.
Even if it's just nicotine and not THC we've talked about. Doctor, thank you very much for coming here and talking about it, because vaping is going to be something we're going to continue to explore.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you being here. Dr. Hassan Naimi from Henry Ford Hospital. We've wanted to talk to so much about the green ooze and the dock collapse on this program. I want to remind you that tonight you can join us for a Help Me Hank Defenders special, Defending the Environment, Hank Winchester and Karen Drew with the latest on their investigations. That's coming up here tonight on Local 4 at 8 o'clock. That's going to do it for us. Meet the Press coming up next. I hope you have a great week, and we'll see you right back here next week for Flashpoint.